Here we are. We are live. Welcome to What's Wrong with Richard Rushfield with the great AJ Daulerio here with us. AJ is a legend in media and currently doing one of the most interesting things happening on the internet right now. He is the founder, editor, writer, doyen of the Small Bow, a website. What do you call it? Do you call it a website, a media organization?
I think it's expanding into, I would say, a media company, but it originally was a newsletter, and then it's a podcast, and now we're doing, physical books, and we're doing a lot of stuff at this point. So, yeah,
Conglomerate.
conglomerate sounds great. Yeah,
The Small Bow Conglomerate,
yeah,
which focuses on issues of sobriety and recovery, which, given that it's something that affects tens of millions of people,
yeah,
has always occupied a really small kind of like the nichest corner of media, has
right.
never, I don't think, been tackled regularly in a way that is kind of interesting and engaging and builds a community and
Yeah,
audiences outside of outside a very like limited thing. And a lot of that is because excuse me, these are sensitive issues and people are afraid to. But there just been something missing, and the Small Bow is really incredible in how it's filled that gap. And
thank you.
welcome to our show, AJ Daulerio.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to return the favor and for you
Yeah,
coming
so
on our show. Yeah.
we should say this is a real pod rolling. What do you call it?
Yeah.
I was on the Small Bow podcast a couple weeks ago, and now we have the return engagement. So
Right.
I don't know if it's a conflict of interest or if we're violating internet ethics rules here or whatever. But
No, absolutely not. No, no.
delighted.
We're two people just trying to get along in this basically multimedia world. It's just very kind of confusing and disorienting, especially for people our age. I mean, we don't know what we're doing, so we have to kind of do
I
whatever
mean,
we can.
that's kind of our trademark. So
Yeah.
so it works out perfectly, I guess. But I want to start. I generally open these with a kind of with it's almost an AA qualifier, like what happened
Right.
without people can look up your history there. There are
Right.
many things written about it, but just how that led to you coming to start the Small Bow
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
coming to LA for that matter, of all places.
I mean, it was that is such a complicated. It does have so many different chapters of like my first year in recovery being, my first attempt at real sustained recovery was in 2015 that fall. Then I went to treatment, got out in December 2015, then was in the trial for the Gawker v. Hogan trial where I was a co-defendant in February of 2016, like end of February. So, and that didn't go well for myself or Gawker, kind of upended my career at that time. I was just, doing online media journalism. I had my own tabloid company at the time, which kind of went under at that point. But, I spent the next year really trying to get sober with like this looming the loose ends of that giant trial, which didn't go well for Gawker. And it was like, and I was tied up in that for a while. And, the Small Bow kind of didn't originate right away from there, but it was always the idea that I wanted to have if I could get back into media. I wanted to have a place which I was looking for when I got out of treatment, right? Which was, I like a long essay. I'm a long essay person. I'm a fan of kind of just, that era of the internet. And I wanted to write about my experience and have it go to the right people too, in terms of the right audience. And when I started searching around, and especially when I got first out of recovery, I was typing in, I'm 50 days sober and I want to run into traffic, like out of like a fit of frustration and things like that, wondering what would come up. And what came up was the suicide hotline and more ads for rehabs, right? Which, I mean, that's fine, but it also just like at least put the idea in my head where it's just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there could be a place which could write about recovery, but not necessarily from a 12-step lens all the time, too, right? Which is just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it wasn't even like a beat anywhere. It wasn't,
No, I mean, I
you
was,
think that's
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a site called The Fix, and I don't know, you probably remember this. It was Mayor
yeah, yeah,
Bashan who like
right,
founded
right,
that
right.
like after his site, and that existed for a short period of time, and then it got bought by a rehab, and then it became kind of just another working ad, basically, right? And I really wanted to, and this very sounds probably very pretentious, but I was like, can I do like the Paris Review of recovery writing or something along those lines, right?
Well, that is what you've created. It's that storytelling and community
Right.
that has. But it is astonishing that Esquire didn't say, "Let's have a sobriety reporter," or that there was not really nothing before that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get your opinion on this. I should have asked this during the thing, but and I've found that I think that if there are celebrities in recovery, if they're getting profiled, the person who's profiling them should also be in recovery, right? Especially if there's like a public component to that. Just for example, I mean, I'm in the process of being profiled by the Guardian, and the writer was asking me the other day how many times I've done the steps and things like that, and really kind of these broad generalizations about what my 12-step practice is. And I was like, well, it's kind of annoying. It's not CrossFit, right? And what the whole point of the small
How many
boat.
steps did you do this morning?
Well, I mean, he asked me how many times I did them, and like, I was almost like, well, I guess 3, but they're kind of an ongoing process for me, right? But the point was that what the small bow is supposed to occupy is all these other feelings that come with it. I mean, obviously, I do, I'm in therapy, and I do a lot of just Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of reading that doesn't have anything to do with 12 steps. But this is all the stuff that I need to kind of stay upright and sane. And not I don't think I'm gonna drink. I don't think I'm gonna just like do drugs, but I mean I can fuck myself up in many different ways, as anybody can, right? So
Yeah, and I mean once you get past basic recovery and people living sober and all that, it becomes like really questions of living. Like everything is a sobriety question. Like
yeah, exactly.
what kind of suitcase do I need to pack for this trip? Somehow has a sobriety element. Like
Right.
what should I watch on TV? So just to a place that gets into that, and the question about reporters is an interesting one because I would say. I would say a reporter doesn't necessarily have to be in recovery, but they have to. This if they're doing an interview like this is their first exposure to that and these issues, they're going to get a lot of things wrong.
Right.
If they
should be a
haven't.
moral failing approach, right? Or that this was, I don't think that anyone has I don't think it could fit into the arc where it's just like, here's this rock bottom, here's this redemption, and are you going to keep it, right? That shouldn't be something anyone asks from a reporting sort of storytelling perspective. I mean, I think that it's obviously something that is very personal to me. I'm public about it, but I don't want to be questioned and graded on it by someone who is not doing it right.
Yeah, I think that's been the stumbling block to something getting up. So Alcoholics Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous and
Sure.
everything else anonymous, they start with the word anonymous in the title, and and part of the traditions is that remain anonymous at a level of press, radio, and film, and the so I think for a lot of people and traditionally like that anonymity is a kind of double-edged sword that makes people it was part of it was to protect people who are in a very and especially it started at a time when there was a real stigma attached. You couldn't
Yeah.
just go out and say, "Oh, hey, I'm an alcoholic. Great to meet
Yeah,
you. I'm
exactly.
applying to be a vice president at this firm." Um, but it also they were in a sensitive place and not demanding that people stand on a boat. But I I think it sort of also creates like a shadows that people get very comfortable in and get.
Yeah.
So I know when you asked me to be on your podcast there, I really haven't uh, talked about this stuff on the public. And frankly, no one's ever asked me to. So
Yeah.
it's not like I've been kept aside. And when you asked me to do about it, I was thinking, should I come to at this. I'm in my 50s now.
Right, right.
I've been doing this for 30 years. What the hell initially came to what do I have to worry about if I can't? But anyway, how has been breaking through that fear and that
Yeah.
with people and are people reluctant to talk about it still, or are they relieved to have a place where they finally could, which is kind of how I felt. But
I think it goes both ways. I mean, I have a real affinity for people, especially public figures, who don't want to participate because they do respect the traditions and their sobriety is a personal thing and is one that they want to kind of stick to and hold on to and don't want to have it debated, right? Mostly. And then there's the other side of this, which I think in my situation, because I was such a public fuck up and drank and used and all those things and 12 step has been great for one part of this for me, but I also want other people to know that I think if I was like, so actively putting it out there that I was a recreational drug user and I drank a lot and that was part of my persona in a lot of ways, why wouldn't I talk about this side of it too? Right. I mean, I feel like I should give that back as best as I possibly can. And I think a lot of other people are starting to feel that way now too. Right. I mean, I do feel like, there are a couple of people that came on our show, have been reluctant to kind of, raise their hand publicly, but have done so because they read The Small Bow too. And we became friends about that. So I mean, I think that there is a little bit more of a shift in people wanting to talk about this from a recovery perspective as opposed to just like an overall anonymity sobriety perspective, right?
yeah, no, this is another thing. I mean, part of I think the obligation of sobriety is that if someone comes to you for help,
Yeah.
that you are there for them, which I've always felt. But like, if nobody in the world knows that, you know,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
not likely to get called out on that if it's a big secret. That
Yeah. I mean, look, I get, especially when there's something that I get a little bit more attention than I'm used to in terms of just like if a story goes out there. I do this column for Slate too, where I write about recovery. And, when I mention 12 step as part of my program, I will inevitably get someone who is reminding me of the 11th tradition. Right. That's just going to happen. That is just going to happen always. But it's only happened a handful of times. So I can't say it is something that is as much of a barrier as it used to be. And I feel like, the main part is that people know that I'm a different person now, right? And not just because it's going to do well for my career, but I mean, there are plenty of kind of stories about me, especially in media, where I mean, I have a complete opposite reputation than I do now. And
well, that
go ahead.
yeah, I mean that's very interesting. That your that your the effects of your time using
Yeah.
and are very public. So if you were to be private about, you kind of leave that hanging. Is that is your entire reputation? If you,
Well, yeah, yeah, but I mean, it was also one of those things where what was discouraging about being part of that, that giant show trial at the part of very early recovery, right? Like super early, talking 100 days, maybe if that, right? And the part that was frustrating where people were comparing my recovery and putting it on that timeline, like, oh, the trial basically went bad for him, so now he's basically trying to clean up his act. And I've been trying to get sober for 20 years, man. I mean, it was always hard. I would get like 6 days, fall off. I would promise to stop doing coke and then just like try to smoke pot and do wine back to it was just that was my life. And I was trying to really get some solid time under my belt, and then it just so happened to coincide with that trial at the time too.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to talk a little about without getting too deep into the Gawker world. When you look back on Gawker and the I have such conflicted feelings about the writing of that time. We worked at Gawker together briefly.
Yeah.
I think we were in 2 meetings together there on Moon Street.
Yeah.
There, but like it, I admire so much. That's why I left the Los Angeles Times to go to Gawker.
Right.
I mostly people formed their media career at there, but I was already, but I was so drawn to it because there was so much energy and passion, and also so much just talent and so many incredible the people that I just loved reading because they were just such great writers.
The alumni is pretty astounding if you kind of look at it.
It's staggering. I want to get into why we stopped creating people like that, but the other is the tone which I myself indulged in, and I indulged in sobriety. So but the causticness of it, and I guess beyond caustic, it's could get almost rabid on a good day. But do you think you could? How does that fit in with sobriety? Could you write like that today?
I do. I don't, for the most part. I look back and I'm just like, could I work at Gawker as a sober person, as the sober person I am today? And probably not, right? And it's not just because of what that place brought out of me, but it's mostly because I think that it's hard to be of service to the world as I possibly could be in that environment too. Like I probably could have written for Lifehacker. Put it that way. Lifehacker is out to help people, right?
I would point out this app will save you 25 minutes on airline
like that. Yeah, meditation apps. I would review those. But I do, in addition to the Slate Recovery column, I do the parenting column as well. So I'm like in that rotating group of people that do answer parenting questions. And I get a little bloggy with that. I do. And I that scratches the itch where I can kind of just like, oh my God, can I still sling it a little bit and kind of do my jokes and my internet, 1.0, 2.0 jokes. And I love it.
No debates go quicker to rage territory than parenting debates.
I mean, yeah, it really is. And I mean, I these questions are so crazy sometimes, but I mean, it's so fun to do. I love it.
And people are so passionate, not just in what choice they made, but in the feeling that everyone who made a different choice is committing murder on their children.
Oh, look, Sean Fennessy. I love Sean Fennessy.
Sean,
cool.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Sayward. Yeah. What's up, John? Hey. I never saw this side. Sorry, I'm being excited.
Yeah, no. Feel free to engage. And by the way, anyone in there wants to comment or ask a question, feel free to throw it out there. But let me ask you a related question, not directly about sobriety, but about Gawker.
Yeah.
So much, as you say, so many talented people emerged from there. So it was such it kind of formed it kind of created a voice that. A house style that really like lifted up people's abilities and the ability to write on a different level, and it was an incredibly literary sensibility and just real. I mean, funny in a way that nothing is now. I don't feel like media is producing
Right.
there's no place that is producing a regular a steady stream of new talent
Yeah.
that just
I mean,
astound that I mean it was people I constantly every week you pick up Gawker and like wow
yeah.
who is this person is a genius what
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, honestly, and I hate to give it credit because, but I mean, Substack is producing some pretty unique voices. I would say, absolutely. I mean, I can't like, I can't think of anyone doing as well with this platform as Emily Sundberg does. I mean, she's just like one of like the most unique and talented people from a different era. It feels like she feels like to me that she's doing a lot of what the Gawker era did, and not just like the Gawker.com, but I mean she's kind of mixing a lot of stuff because it's kind of a trade publication
yeah
too, right? I mean, I think that's what's amazing about it. But her voice and like how she's kind of built this whole entire kind of empire is really impressive, and I think that that's great about this era is like many people have like the opportunity to do that if they want to do that, right? I mean, you can build your own Gawker now, essentially, right?
what what disappeared it probably disappeared even before Gawker ended but the Gawker art of headline writing
Yeah,
for a time, which was kind of it
right.
was kind of combining traditional newspaper
I
headline writing
still,
and the New York
yeah,
Post and putting a internet spin on it
right.
was such a brilliant thing. Do you have a favorite Gawker
Oh,
headline that
but
I have one
which
here?
I still think about this, and it's my own too, which is
Mm.
horrible to say. But I mean, I don't
You're
know if you
allowed.
remember, and this is
You
2012,
can vote for
and I,
yourself.
I don't know if you remember when there was the dolphin that was stuck in the Gowanus Canal, and it was kind of just like this hostage crisis that was being overly covered, and then the dolphin passed away, sadly, right? But and Max Reed was doing kind of just like the live blogging updates on it. But after the dolphin passed away, I suggested all dolphins go on us to heaven, and it is my proudest moment as a
Yeah.
Gawker editor. Yeah.
That is a great one.
Thank you.
My personal favorite that I remember is one by Emily Gould. She wrote about there was a Upper West Side periodontist who was caught up in
Right.
some sort of scandal, and the headline was his name was Hernando something or other. Uh, Hernando something or other, and her headline was "Do heal the gums, Hernando." And I think of that headline every day.
Credit like where it should be. I mean, there are so many like that you look back on and you're just like, man, those the art of headline writing is a lost art at this point. And
Can we between us? I do it sporadically
yeah,
in my head. As the Ankler became more formal, kind of the nonsensical
right,
literary allusion headlines were less practical.
yeah,
With thing I here on the Rushfield Jamboree, I'm resolving to revitalize that. My vote for myself on the less Moonves when he was taken down. I had headlined the dark side of the Moonves.
There you go. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
we should bring back puns
Puns are fun.
and
No, I
literary.
mean we just had one when Lindsay Adler wrote about David. She interviewed David Foster Wallace's sister. So the headline was "Consider the Sister," which I think is just kind of brings that back a little bit. Yeah,
I love that so much.
yeah,
Let's do it. Let's do a whole other dueling headlines show.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
But the so where are you getting your writers? Where are they coming from? How and who are the people that are contributing to Small Book?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that I've gotten to know a lot of people, in the past 2 decades. who I love their writing, and I think that some of them have become part of recovery. But the great part about, and I want this for the small bow, is just like I don't need anyone to qualify, right? If your byline is on the small bow, then I assume that you should be there for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, right? And I have a lot of like half of our audience is in recovery, I would say, and then the other half is just I like to call just like sometimes feel lonely or strange or can't figure out who they are, and I want it to always be open to anyone. Right. So I try to bring in as many great writers who I'm a fan of, like all the time. I mean, it's so awesome that Sarah Miller has now become, very publicly sober because she's one of my favorite writers, and she's been writing for the Small Bow for like 6 years now. But she did that tremendous like New Yorker piece about her early sobriety for her, and that's just great that she's part of my heavy rotation already. But I like Q&As. I like people who are addicted to the internet or claim to be addicted to the internet. We did this series called Emotional Sobriety in the Internet, and it just kind of forces people to look at their phone habits and things along those lines. Because
that is a great. I mean, it is as powerful as crack addiction. The
if
whole
you
that
work
internet.
in this space, it's tough to not. I hate the fact that it's the first thing that I do in the morning because I mean I became such a good prayer guy in 12 step, but then once the small bow started to grow a little bit more, I became a checked an email first thing in the morning with coffee guy, and I
I
hate
mean,
it.
you think about like if you're an alcoholic or a junkie or whatever, you don't say I need there's three people ahead of me on the checkout line here. I need a
Yeah,
fix to get through it.
right.
Like you can get through that 90-second wait
Yeah,
without submitting, but you do need, but you couldn't survive that these days without.
I
And
know. Well, I mean, especially you, because I mean, you obviously, I mean, cover an industry that is constantly changing and constantly you're bombarded with content that you have to kind of check in on at least, right? I mean,
I mean, I yes, but honestly, like if you told me like, okay, you've got half an hour a day where you check social media and turn it off the other 23 and a half hours, I would be fine. Like I could do
it's
my job.
great. Yeah.
But I never did that. I never will do that to never do that.
Right. Right.
But I
Yeah.
could.
No, it was funny when I went to treatment for I went for about 50 days, and it was like my third attempt. So I went to treatment, and I gave them my phone, and they stuck it in the locker for that long. And when I got out, I was expecting just all of this news and all of this information and all of this people that I was really looking forward to missing. Nothing changed. Like
Yeah.
nothing happened
It's
at all, right? I mean, and I have to remember that. That is just, when I forget my phone, it's really a great day. It really is.
and sadly I never had that. But that is such a. Are you planning to make that more of a beat and
Yeah, for
social
sure.
media?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm gonna have PJ Vogt on pretty soon on the podcast to talk about this. We talked about it a little bit on, the small bow already about just like, because, he's obviously kind of just his beat is the internet too, but he's also a fan of it and it's also become part of him. So, he's got really interesting perspectives on basically how to kind of just, stay human throughout, doing what he does for a living. Yeah. And
Right, right.
I've had Kate Conger on from the New York Times, who, is obviously covering, I mean, Elon as a tech beat, and then Elon becoming part of Doge. Now she's got a political beat. And just like that shift, I was just asking people how you go to bed at night and turn this off possibly when you're almost kind of having to write about the changes in the world that will impact it then, right? And she had a lot of interesting things to say. And I think that people's jobs in media are its own sort of drug addiction in its own way, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
especially now, because I mean, I think that this is something that I associated as the biggest part of me, and sometimes the best part of me was my job, and it's a terrible way to live.
Yeah. And but the negative effects. I mean, people say, how do you know how do you know when you should quit drinking or something? Well, say, well, is it screwing up your life?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
right.
I mean, who among us can't say the internet is screwing up our lives?
I know
I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
screwing up our kids' lives and screwing up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my kids are pretty good about it right now. I mean, they give the phone back and they don't really freak out that much. And I started doing this hack because I have a 6, 7, and 9-year old, and the 6 and 7-year old just got home. So if you start to hear that sort of chaos, that's what that is. But when they ask for the phone, I make them do a 1-minute meditation with me beforehand.
That's
Just to
very
kind
good.
of get that into the rotation as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, so far so good. But I was talking to one of my sponsors today, and they're just like, "Well, isn't that going to be great when they get asked at 35, when did you start meditating?" And we'll say 6.
Yeah, it will be. I'm
Yeah,
going to try that. I'm going to try that on my 14-year-old and see
yeah,
if he stabs me in the throat while I'm
right.
meditating.
Yeah.
Um, the ship might have sailed for him, but we'll see. Um, okay, we have come to the end of our time much too quickly. Substack needs a room, so better clear out here. Will you come? We barely scratch the surface here, so
I know. I
you've
will
got.
come back anytime because we do have a lot to discuss and about the
Yeah.
things that we've talked about privately about just, how to kind of cover recovery in Hollywood, right? And just like, how that should be changed. I mean, after especially after Matthew Perry, I thought, we talked a lot about that, about how
Yeah,
to cover that story appropriately.
and it's such a. I mean, nobody comes to Hollywood for the sobriety. Like
That's true.
that's
That's
not
true.
what we're famous for here.
But they should,
Uh,
and we'll
yeah,
change that.
but honestly, it's good luck. But you got to come back soon, and we'll
I
talk
will.
about all this. And thank you for all you're doing. It is great talking. It's always the time always goes way too fast when we talk.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Talk soon.